Wow, everybody's here. Sorry to be a few minutes late, but thank you for waiting. Let me call the meeting to order and ask you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Mr. Timniak, if you could lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up on our agenda is some special recognition in honor of National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And we have a proclamation. Whereas the town of Fairfield proudly celebrates January 9th, 2017 as National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, or LEAD Day, and whereas the citizens wish to publicly recognize the dedication that the men and women of our police department have demonstrated in choosing the path of public service to us all, and whereas law enforcement in Fairfield was first organized in the year, are you ready? 1661, with the appointment of the first town marshal. The standing police department was created by town ordinance in 1930 with 7 officers to protect and serve the citizens of Fairfield. This original 7-man department has grown to employ 108 sworn officers, 70 special agents, 15 telecommunicators, 4 animal control officers, and 7 marina guards. Whereas our Fairfield police put on a badge each day, knowing that they may face extremely dangerous situations while carrying out their duties, and for this, we recognize and extend sincere gratitude to the men and women in blue. And whereas, on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and every day, Fairfield supports and recognizes all those who stand on the front lines and continue to make Fairfield safer. Now, therefore, I, Michael C. Tetro, First Selectman of the town of Fairfield, do hereby proclaim January 9th, 2017 as Law Enforcement Day throughout the town of Fairfield. Chief, come on up. And if you'd be kind of, give us a few words on your department and...
First of all, thank you all as selectmen for including us in your evening events for this meeting. I think it is very important that we take a moment to really recognize, first of all, why we're here and really recognize what we're signifying. First of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the posters, Mr. and Mrs. Poster, for all their support in us over the years, especially bringing this Law Enforcement Appreciation Day to the town of Fairfield. I believe it's now 2 years ago that it started, so I appreciate that. For those of you who are not aware, the police department is overseen by a board of police commissioners. There are 4 here today. Commissioner Caffarelli. Oh, sorry. There are 5 here today. Give me 1 second now to regroup here. Commissioner Caffarelli, Commissioner Lebo, Commissioner Barrett, Commissioner Peterson, and Commissioner Stone. Obviously, you can tell they're volunteers and they're busy, so all of them, depending upon their schedule, may or may not be here. Also today here is Deputy Chief Liddy, Captain Don Smith, Lieutenant Ed Green, Officer Chance Wilkie, and Officer Felix Gonzalez. Felix is one of our most recent police officers to the ranks, and the more recent you are in our organization, the more important you are in our organization, because what you're looking at are the future of the organization. So you don't look at a police department at the top and who's the most time on. You really look at those with the least time on, because they're the men and women who are really going to continue the tradition dating back to the 1600s. 1800s?
1661.
Just very briefly, last year the Fairfield Police Department responded to over 50,000 incidents, and we have officers that are in patrol, doing detective work, our school safety unit, our traffic safety unit, our marine unit. So we have officers in a variety of different capacities throughout the year, and some of those change over the years. 50,000 incidents that we responded to is really the most we've seen, at least that I'm aware of. So our demand for service is increasing. some of those calls are very, very tragic, and we've seen some of those calls for service. Some are not so tragic. Some are just people wanting us to help them with directions or their car's stuck. So we really form a variety of different services for the town. Here's what's occurring, though, and just so you're aware of it. Some of the other things we do you might not be aware of. We collected toys for kids. Recently, we served lunch for seniors at the senior center. And really, if you think about it, in one form or another, any significant event that occurs in town, you're going to see a Fairfield police officer that's going to be there. Here's the tragic part of it. In our profession, this past year, we've seen a 10% increase in the number of officers killed in the line of duty. 10% increase. More tragic, we have seen a 56% increase in officers killed by gunfire. 56% increase over 2015. More concerning, we have seen a 163% increase in officers killed by ambush. And to put it into perspective, when you talk about a police officer killed by ambush, that means that it's a police officer killed for being a police officer. For a man or a woman putting on a uniform and going out into their communities to protect it. It's not that they're responding to tragic calls that happen to have violence. They're actually killed because they exist. And that's really the tragic part of this, and that's really why this Law Enforcement Appreciation Day came to be. It's that we need our community support. We need you to trust us, and we need you to follow us. We don't need you to follow us blindly. Always question us. Always inquire and always question us. But we need you to follow us and trust us. Do so with that open eye to say, hey, we're out there doing good. Because ultimately, the police officers killed this past year are just like any police officer you've ever seen in your day. They're mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, husbands, wives, friends, and family members. And they're really going out there just to make the community safer. And some of them tragically don't come home. So we thank you as a police department for taking time out to do that. And I appreciate the time to do that. We are here for you, and it's really, really good for the men and women to know that you are here for us. So thank you, sir, so much.
Any comments from my colleagues?
Chief, I think you summed it up perfectly. Your words, they're sad to hear. And when you talk about the higher rates for police officers being ambushed and murdered and killed, but it's important that we do hear them. And it's important that we take our opportunity to thank our police officers and acknowledge new police officers like you've done when we see them on the street. I'm accustomed to seeing the same officers around town time and time and time again, but having new officers come to be highlighted is a good way to introduce them to the public so more and more citizens of Fairfield can become comfortable with the people who are protecting us. The ones who we call when we need help most is your department. So I appreciate all you do, and I really appreciate your words today.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice, Gary. It's nice to rely on you guys, the value you bring to the town, your dedication, your commitment. It's all appreciated. And if this is one of the ways we can show it, I'm happy to do it. And it was a downer what you just said about the other stuff, but, thank you. And thanks to all the men and women of the department.
And echoing my colleagues, I think that, we do see your officers and the entire team from our police department out in our community. And as I've said before, and I think that one of the big differences here in Fairfield, one of the things that helps make Fairfield special is the fact that you're here not just to protect our community, but you're truly part of our community. And you demonstrate that time and time again between toy drives at Christmas time, between serving the seniors lunch, and seeing the smiles on those seniors' faces is just out of sight, and they really appreciate what you're doing for them. But that also makes you part of the senior center. It makes your team part of the senior center, and I think that's a tremendous compliment to the community values that your department's stressing. So thank you again, and gentlemen, shall we present this proclamation to the chief?
Yeah. Can we have the new officers come up too?
Whoever the chief would like.
Just the three of us then. I can order them all up.
Welcome aboard. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. All right. Pull this up here. There we go. Yeah? All right, thank you, guys. Ed, your point may be well taken. Maybe we'll do, you guys want to do a couple of these employments and then make a motion to take on Osborne Hill because the chief is here?
I think we can go through all the appointments.
Well, let's get through. All right, then just bump it before the Public Works items. Is your suggestion?
Yeah.
Okay, so when after we do the budget calendar, let's take a look at moving that up. All right, again, moving on with our agenda. Next item up is to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular meeting of December 21st, 2016. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion or amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up, first selectman appointments, and these are for information only. To the Economic Development Commission, Keith Rhodes, Republican, 302 Birch Road, for a term of 11/16 to 11/21, and this is to fill a vacancy for Brian Silvestro, whose term expired. Is Mr. Rhodes here? Good, all right. Mr. Rhodes, thank you for volunteering to step up and help on the Economic Development Commission at a very important time. Next up, the Parking Authority. This is a first selectman appointment for information only. Henry Acheron, a Democrat, 98 Hunter Road, for a term of 11/16 to 11/21. And this is to fill a vacancy for Todd Chandler, whose term expired. And the appointment date was December 22nd, 2016. Then also on the Parking Authority, John Marson, Republican, 58 North Cedar Road, for a term of 11/12 to 11/17. And this is to fill a vacancy for Ronald Pine, who resigned. And the appointment date is also December 22nd, 2016. Mr. Acheron or Mr. Marson here? All right. And again, thank you to you two gentlemen for volunteering and helping out. Next up, item 6, to hear, consider, and act upon the following reappointments to the Burr Gardens Advisory Committee. Lisa Callahan, Republican, 290 Beach Road, for a term of 11/16 to 11/19. Okay to do these together, guys?
Sure.
That's it.
All right. Jennifer Downing, unaffiliated, from 1197 Mine Hill Road, for a term of 11/16 to 11/19. Laura Fasano, Republican, 892 Harbor Road, for a term 11/16 to 11/19. And Ellen Gould, unaffiliated, for a term from 648 Harbor Road, for a term of 11/16 to 11/19. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion?
Appreciate them willing to serve.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe
thank you.
Ms. Gould is here?
Yes.
Yeah, we are. I think the others were out of the country or unavailable for today. All right, any comments from the public? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And again, congratulations and thank you for your service on the Burr Gardens Committee. There's a lot going on in the Burr Gardens over the next few years with the development at Burr Mansion. I want to thank you for your service and and Ms. Gould for your continuing service in that regard. Next up, appointments. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments. One, to the Board of Health, and okay, we'll take these one at a time because there's different boards. For Mary Frances De Steno, Democrat, 1198 Samuel Lane, for a term of 11/16 to 11/20. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
And this is to fill a vacancy for Jacob Henn, whose term expired. Is Ms. De Steno here?
Let's see her.
Okay. Any comments from the board?
I like her healthcare experience. I think she's going to be a welcome addition to the board.
Yeah. I had a very good conversation. I concur with that. She had some great background for us there.
I know Mary Frances. I think she's going to be fantastic on the board.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Back to the board. All in favor? Aye. All right. It's done. Next up, Flood and Erosion Control Board. To hear, consider, and act upon the appointment of Frank Police, Republican, 15 Osborne Place, for a term of 11/16 to 11/21, and this is to fill a vacancy for Albert Rick Grauer, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right. Any further comments or discussion?
I know Frank. He's got great experience for this. He's an engineer. I think this is a good appointment for this committee.
All right. I think Frank is here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, there we are.
Yeah, I agree. I like the engineering background. I think it's going to be a welcome addition.
Frank, that's degrees in civil engineering?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's great to have another civil engineer involved. I think I enjoyed our conversation. I appreciate you willing to step up here and help out at the time. Any comments from the public? Any further comments from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you for serving. Appreciate that. Next up, to hear, consider, and act upon a appointment to the Golf Commission. Alexander Grukowski, a Republican, 463 Half Mile Road, for a term of 4/16 to 4/21, and this is to fill a vacancy for Patrice Klein, who resigned. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any comments from the board?
I look forward to having Alex's contributions on the Golf Commission. It's going to be a busy committee. I'm excited that you're going on.
I echo that.
Okay. Mr. Grukowski, I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for filling me in, and again, thank you for willing to step up and be part of this. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, congratulations, Alex. Thank you. All right. Next up, for the Historic District Commission, to hear, consider, and act on the appointment of Christopher Shea, Republican, 917 Merwins Lane, for a term 11/16 to 11/21. This also requires RTM approval. This is to fill a vacancy for Ellen Gould, whose term expired, and this is moving from an alternate member to a full member. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right, any comments from the board?
I see Chris is here. Thank you for coming. I look forward to your contributions on the board. I appreciate you willing to step up and actually serve on the board, so thank you.
Yeah, likewise, and congratulations, and I look forward to it, and, you know, I'm happy you moved up from alternate to full term. Congratulations.
Yes, and I'll say that we had a very good conversation. I think looking at the Historic District Commission, one of the challenges is how to protect our heritage and our culture, but also at the same time preserve it for future generations. And we've got a real challenge in how we look at that and what we deal with that as a town. And I think, again, as we talk, I think there's some challenging times ahead in terms of how you approach that. So I want to thank you for being willing to undertake that. Any comments from the public? Ms. Figuera, if you come up here and state your name and address. Just to be clarified for everybody, these are comments and comments only, and I would ask that they stay to the topic at hand, which in this case is the appointment of Mr. Shea.
Hi, Jill Vergara. I live at 271 Old Post Road, and I'm an RTM representative for District 7. I'm coming in under my capacity as a resident of the Old Post Road Historic District. I want to thank Mr. Shays for his service, and I've only heard good things, so I'm glad that he's going to be a full member now. But his vacancy as an alternate, it raises the issue of an appointment to the HDC, and I wanted to engage the board in a discussion about appointments, following appointments. And as an Old Post Road resident, I'm very interested in having someone from the Old Post Road represent us. It's been quite a while since someone from the Old Post Road has been on the HDC, and I think that what you discussed, the challenges, the upcoming challenges, that involves the town green renovations, and it significantly impacts our neighborhood. And it would be very helpful to have someone on the HDC representing us at that time.
Thank you. Thank you. And I believe you also forwarded some additional questions or comments by email, and I want to thank you for that also.
Yes.
And I think that what I referenced is what I asked Kathleen Griffin to follow up on, some state statutes, which I sent out to both of you, I believe, over the weekend, but if not, late last week. If you didn't get that, please let me know, and I will make sure we get it to you.
I saw it, yeah.
All right. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Shea, and thank you again for your service. All right, next up, Human Services Commission. To hear, consider, and act upon the appointment of Carolyn Durgee, Republican, 49 Pratt Street, for a term 11/16 to 11/20, to fill a vacancy for Joan Swanson, who passed away in the previous term. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion or any comments from the board?
I would just thank Carolyn for stepping up and doing. Yeah, I mean, you've been an active member of the community forever, and almost. Since I've been a little kid, I definitely know it, and I'm excited to have you on the board, and certainly your experiences in town will help the committee. Thank you, Carolyn.
Mr. Bateson?
It's an honor. We go back to Oldfield.
Oh, please.
I know, so I'm happy.
And again, Ms. Durgee, thank you. It's great to see your continuing service to the town, and thank you for the volunteer spirit, which is part of what makes our town so special. Any comments from the public? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, the Parks and Rec Commission. To hear, consider, and act upon the appointment of Bridget McBride, unaffiliated, 103 Ann Street, for a term of 11/16 to 11/21. And this is to fill a vacancy for Gregory Alprin, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion from the board?
I'm excited to have Bridget on. I know I keep saying that same thing. Bridget is a small business owner here in town. She runs a recreation studio, exercise studio. She's engaged with more parents in town and knows exactly the needs of the rec department. And having her voice on the rec board is going to be of tremendous value. So I'm excited Bridget said yes to joining the board. I don't see her here.
Is Bridget here?
No. I don't
No,
see
not
her.
at this time, okay. Mr. Bates?
Yeah, no, I'd like to echo that. I read her questionnaire, and quite frankly, I liked her comments about, her interest in the beach and what she saw as issues down there. It's something that I hear throughout the community, so I'm happy that she's willing to get involved and address her issues to the board.
Okay. I've got mixed, to be honest, I'm just mixed on this one for two reasons. One, I've had a chance to talk to Bridget, and she's phenomenal. She's just the type of person we want to get involved. She's the type of representative we want on our boards and commissions. It's hard to find good people on boards and commissions. And that's why I'm concerned that Mr. Alprin, whose term expired, but was eligible to be reappointed, and wasn't considered for reappointment. And I think that he'd done a good job for the past year. I think that's what we ask people to do, and we ask our volunteers to do. And I'm just concerned that we've got somebody who did a good job and wanted to continue beyond 1 year to do that. And I'm disappointed that wasn't allowed to happen. So, any comments from the public? Back to the board. Any further comments here? Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I'm going to, as I said, have to vote against this one because of the process, though I do have great respect for Bridget, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation about, and I hope she would get involved. I just wish it would happen in a different way. Next up, also for the Parks and Rec Commission, to hear, consider, and act upon the appointment of Mr. Brian H. Thompson, Republican, 137 Elm Street, 11/16 to 11/21, to fill a vacancy for Brian Nareau, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second.
Second.
Any comments? Gentlemen?
Ed, you want to go first?
Yeah, I know, I served with Brian on the sewer commission. I know he came off that sewer commission because he termed out, and he had expressed interest in me to get involved. And I know he's always had an affinity for the Parks and Rec Commission, so I thought it'd be a great place for him.
No, I reached out to him as well. He's very interested in serving. He was a fantastic member on the WPCA Commission. His attendance was phenomenal. I look forward to having his contributions on the Rec Department as well, Commission.
Okay. And again, I'm mixed on this. I've had a chance to work with Mr. Thompson on the WPCA Commission, and I think he did a very good job there. I've had a great conversation with him about Parks and Rec and his background as a lacrosse coach, and again, somebody else is the type of person and type of passion we want involved in Fairfield. I do have to point out that Brian Monroe, I really was looking for him to be reappointed. He's the past chair. We're at a very difficult time in Parks and Rec because we are trading out our executive director. We have gone through part of the search process with Brian, being a key player in that, and losing Jerry Lombardo as our director, losing Brian at this time means it's difficult to have continuity in the search process. It's also a critical time in our Parks and Rec where with a new director coming on board, hopefully shortly, it would be nice to have the continuity and leadership from an experienced chair. And again, Brian did an excellent job and was invaluable to the town over the past few years in helping us navigate some of those. So with that, any comments from the public? Ms. Dean? And again, these are public comments, and I'd ask everybody to focus on, in this case, the appointment of Brian Thompson to the Parks and Rec.
Thank you. I'm Heather Dean. I'm at 919 Stolson Road. I also serve on the RTM in District 3. And I have a question, actually, because I had not been following this, so this is the second time that you've brought up that someone who's wanted to be appointed, who hasn't been appointed. So I'm a little confused as to why they're not being considered for another appointment.
We're really taking comments at this point, and the people before us were the people that were nominated by this board.
All right, I respect that. I know that I'm out of order in this case. I just want to go on record that I'm concerned that we're not recognizing members who have served honorably and want to continue serving, and they're capable of serving again, and they're not being considered. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Well, I have some comments.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard Mr. Monroe, and I appreciate his years of service to the board. What I was looking for is, he had served close to his maximum, what he was allowed to serve. And I know we went back and forth through email about, was he eligible? If you look at it from that point of view, technically he could have been eligible, but I was looking for more to move away from, new eyes on a commission. He had been there close to 10 years. We have a new director, a chance for a new commissioner to join the thing. I see this as an opportunity for a fresh set of eyes on the commission to think outside the box or do different things. I look at that opportunity. And so that's one of the reasons I'm moving away from that. So it is nothing against Mr. Monroe. I just, I offered him via email, want something else. I'm more than happy to consider it.
So from the moment we knew this appointment was coming up, it was always marked as term expired. So we started reaching out. We looked for other candidates to come in. And, today, even on the agenda, it says to fill a vacancy for Brian Monroe, whose term expired. So in trying to get new people on the commissions and trying to reach out and bring stuff, this is a gentleman who served over 9.5 years on the commission and is essentially term expired. So I'm very comfortable with Brian Thompson. What Brian Thompson did was move from the WPCA commission, and his term expired there. Perhaps Brian Monroe is willing to move to another commission and use his same years of experience and value to the town to continue to help the town move forward.
Yeah, without prolonging the discussion too far, this is a critical time for Parks and Rec. Brian was invaluable, and his experience was a major asset to the town. And while getting new blood in is something we do on a regular basis, I think that in this case, having Brian's leadership continue, and I think that the Parks and Rec Commission certainly supported Brian's reappointment to it, and I think they realized they needed that leadership at this time. We're going through a very tough budget cycle. Services are definitely under scrutiny, and having the experienced leadership there was important. So I realize we disagree on that, but that is where we are. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'm opposed, again, not because of Mr. Thompson, but because of my support for Brian and his leadership at this critical time. All right, moving on. Next up is the 2017 budget calendar. This was postponed from December 7th, 2016. Wow, last year. Joint public budget hearing dates for the calendar year 2017, Board of Selectmen, joint public budget hearing dates, March 1st, March 2nd, March 7th, March 9th, March 14th, March 16th, March 21st. Those are joint with the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance voted to approve those last night. May I have a motion to accept those?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All right. We've had a chance to review those. Any comments or questions before we move forward with those?
It's an aggressive schedule. We got through it last year, and I appreciate the Board of Finance for organizing this. And I know the department heads look forward to only having to present once versus twice to us, so.
Mr. Bates, any comments on your side?
No.
All right, any comments from the public? Back to the board, are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then before we get through the Department of Public Works, because we have a number of people here for an item,
Yeah, look
I
at...
would entertain a motion to take an item out of order.
So moved. I'd like to move item number 12 into next item on the agenda.
Okay? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion on that? Any comments from the public on that? Back to the board, we need a two-thirds majority to take it out of order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right, so the item before us is as follows. The Osborne Hill Building Committee, and this is going to require Board of Finance and RTM approval. This was postponed from our December 21st meeting. Is to hear, consider, and act upon a resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating an Additional $475,000 for costs associated with the construction of a covered walkway at Osborne Hill Elementary School and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation." Is Ms. Marshall here? Yes, here she is. Good. Now, I believe, as we got through our discussion on this, there were a few questions to be answered.
Motion to consider.
Oh, I'm sorry. May I have a motion to consider?
I'll make it.
Second.
Second? Thank you. The item is now before us. If you would.
We had a chance to meet with the police department yesterday to go over the, any issues as far as the walkway is
Can't hear.
concerned.
Yep. Can you speak up a little, Ms. Marshall?
I'm sorry. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to go over the walkway design with the police chief, and he's here, he's present today to give his comments on it.
Okay. Chief? You've just been introduced by the chair of the building committee to comment. We had some questions on the, at least from my perspective, the relative safety of the two design approaches. It was relayed to us that you hadn't had a chance, or the department had not had a chance to look at this. We asked that you have that chance and come back here and give us your feedback. Are you okay doing that in public session?
I think, probably given some of the specifics, it's probably better to maybe go into an executive discussion, if that's an option.
Okay. It is. May I have a motion to, are you guys okay to consider that?
I mean, do you want to just do a quick 5,000 feet and then go in executive session, so?
Yeah, I think, first of all, we had Lieutenant Wyatt, who's in charge of our school safety unit, and I sit down with the building committee and the building plans. And we understand that there are two different options that are being considered. Our review, obviously, we look at both options as an improvement over what exists today. So we certainly, we recognize that walking to and from a location with nothing is not necessarily the best option. So now when we start looking at the different options, it's really a matter of which options to consider and which options are determined to go, you're going to go with. And depending upon the option you go with would be depending upon some of the specific security things that we would look to include in there. So that's kind of like on a broad range of it, but to go into the specifics of picking this option, we would consider these security measures, or this option, we'd consider those security measures. It's probably better to do that in private.
And school security is a valid reason for a private executive session, so with that, because I had brought this up and really want to go into more detail on this, I would make a motion for private executive session, if there's a second.
I'll second that.
Right. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, folks, it's going to be a little bit difficult. We're going to ask you all to leave the room. We're going to have this in private executive session. We will open the door and invite you back in when we're done, and I'm going to ask Ms. Marshall and perhaps the architect to stay with us. I don't... Are we good? All right, I have a motion to bring us back into public session.
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're back in public session. Just to let everybody know, in private executive session, no motions were made and no votes were taken. The item as moved is back before us. I think we're looking at a couple of diagrams here. One of the glass enclosed, actually two of the glass enclosed, as well as a floor plan that shows how it gets the students from one building to another. And then, Ms. Marshall, any follow-on comments from you or your team?
If you have any questions about the we have any answer.
I have a couple. I do. And to the architect, I guess. So I'm looking at the two proposals today, and I'm all right with the translucent glass. I think that's okay, and the chief certainly said it's good as well. My concern now is looking at the two architectural drawings. One appears to be completely more substantial than the other. Can you tell me why? Square footage wise, one has an alleyway, the other one doesn't have an alleyway. Please walk me through that.
The brick and glass does not have an alleyway because that was designed early with the original window installation when we didn't have the perception of budget constraints. We had not yet received bids. That brick and glass solution enclosed the entire space between the gym and the annex building so that it netted 800, almost 900 square feet of enclosed space, and essentially created those barriers both from the field in the back as well as from the play courtyard on the west side. The translucent panel solution was in response 2 years later when the building committee had very limited amount of money left, but they said, what is the least solution that we can do to still provide enclosure for the students? That was the translucent solution, where we didn't close off the space from the back playfields, and it creates that dead-end alley from the outside that we do not roof over. That's partially why the cost is higher for the brick and glass, because we're roofing over and enclosing a larger space than using the existing roof now that roofs from school to annex. So that's part of the expense. Your question was about substance.
Exactly. So I'm looking at this here, and I was always under the impression that we're approving option A with brick and mortar, option B, translucent wall, and now I see there's a clear difference in two. One creates an alleyway, the other one doesn't create an alleyway. The committee was asked to reduce cost, figure out a way to reduce cost. Was the brick and mortar solution looked at with a smaller avenue? Would that reduce cost?
Not significantly. While it would eliminate the roof cost and the floor finishing cost, it would escalate the brick and glass solution because now you have to brick and glass the interior alleyway. So the building committee felt that that was not as economical a solution as they were seeking when they knew their funds were limited. They truly asked for, give us the minimum.
So, and I guess I would say the translucent wall, if it were to be created where you eliminated the alleyway,
Yes.
what's the additional cost on that? Like, these are, I'm honestly surprised right now by this.
I'm guessing it would add maybe $75,000 to $90,000 more because you are now re-roofing. While you're saving on the interior side of the translucent wall panel, you're still re-roofing and you're still glazing or translucent walling the side toward the playfields. So you're still paying for floor finishing and roofing that you don't have to pay for in the minimal translucent wall solution. So there is an added increase. We did not bid that out because the committee was truly interested in the minimum versus the comparable.
So the building committee never went out to bid to do a minimal brick and mortar glass?
No.
No, okay. So we still have in front of us the more expensive brick and glass option, option A. We just keep rebidding that same one.
We have.
If we were to rebid the brick and mortar glass one, and I'm going off what I'm hearing, I'm hearing that would save money. That wouldn't be the full cost of this, correct?
We're hoping it would save money, but it is translating roof and floor finishing dollars to brick and glazing on the interior alleyway side. And so it's hard for me to estimate that, especially when we have so many bids and fixed costs, and you have to rely on contractors' bids as being gospel. And so yes, it's certainly possible. It would be the fourth time we've bid this.
I am sort of dismayed that this would be the fourth time we'd go out, and each time we've asked for a cheaper cost. Why? Because budget numbers are tight right now in Fairfield. We just got more bad news from the state last week with $500,000, and here we're the cheaper option, which people prefer, the brick and glass, which the building committee recommended. We never looked to scale that back.
No.
No. So we're faced with a more expensive brick and, we have step A, we never got the middle area, the middle ground, no, that wasn't, in the effort to reduce costs, we never thought to do that, or that was never.
Yeah, sure,
Well,
we thought about it.
we're talking about a corridor, and to present, the contractors with basically three options to bid. I think if we had the brick and mortar, smaller brick and mortar, and the translucent, I think that we'd really be pushing the limits of being able to get any competitive bids.
And I think that's a fair assessment. I guess my opinion would be when we put it out to save money, we would have put out the cheaper or the scaled back. Because, you scaled it back as low as you could for the translucent, but you didn't scale it back as low as you could for the brick and mortar. So that we relied on the contractors' numbers and them tightening their belts and equipment costs and all that, and reworking their labor. But we didn't scale that back. I feel like we left something open.
As Bill said, it might be, it's certainly not going to be the difference between the translucent and the brick and glass. We would have to put in, we'd have to include a number of products that we don't have. We'd have to have more windows, for example, as he pointed out, and the floor finishes. So we can discuss it as a committee, but we are somewhat under the gun because we are going to need to make a decision with the contractor who bid the job several months ago.
Right. And that goes to my thing. I think the children at Osborne Hill need to to have this walkway there. It sort of frustrates me that we have cold, rainy days like we had today and yesterday, and, you know, the kids going back and forth in those conditions sort of upsets me. I would prefer to save the money and the $200,000+ we would save, especially now as we keep getting more and more bad economic news from the state of Connecticut, and what our reimbursement rate's going to be this year, and the ECS funding which they're taking away. I mean, this $200,000 could be put in so many other places right now in this town, versus a walkway, which, again, I want to meet the needs of our students, and that's where I want to be. That's all I
Okay.
have.
Do you mind if,
Yeah, go ahead. No.
Ed, do you have anything to say here?
Not yet.
If we take a look at these two options, and we eliminate security as a concern, what are the differences and what would the recommendation from the building committee be?
Well, the brick and glass is a more permanent, long-term structure than the translucent panels are.
If I could, when you say more permanent long-term, what's the lifespan of what are the differences in lifespan? When you say long-term, what do you mean?
I think that brick and glass is about, is it 50 years?
Correct.
And then translucent panels, 20.
25.
Okay, so 25 versus 50. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to be clear on what you meant by long-term.
Okay.
So ask, what would the differences be? That you're saying long-term, in essence, useful life for the structure, that's one. What would be number two?
I think that's the main thing. That plus the appearance of the walkway and how the students can move through it. There's a ramp through the larger corridor.
Okay, help me out. First I've heard of a ramp and students can move through easier. Help me out with that. What does that mean?
There's a ramp in both solutions because the annex is, 3.5 feet higher than the main school, so both of the solutions have ramps.
Any difference in terms of students being able to move through them easily?
The corridor is minimal in the translucent solution. It virtually frames the existing steel columns. Yes, 2 children can pass by shoulder to shoulder. The brick and glass solution has the larger alleyway available for queuing, staging. There's more multi-purpose that can handle in that.
Any issue with
area.
ADA access between
None.
the two?
Both of them are equal. If anything, if I may comment, the translucent solution, because of its minimal floor plan, does produce that annoying alleyway that's open and accessible from the back play area. It is not cordoned off as it is in the brick and glass solution.
Okay, and what's the disadvantage of that?
Just vandalism, annoyance. It's a hidden, out-of-sight area, and especially with the translucent wall panels, you may not see it as much from the corridor side into that annoying alley.
Any issue with energy conservation, air conditioning, heat, any of that between the two?
No, no difference at all. They both have to meet current building and energy codes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Bateson?
I know where I am on this issue. I know where I've been for years. I'm ready to move forward tonight.
So my other thing, the translucent, because it's smaller, would give more playground space or asphalt space for the kids to run around. It looks like you pick up a couple feet on that.
No, the glazed wall and the translucent wall are virtually placed in the same position outside of the columns. So the gain is negligible.
Well, I mean, you pick up the feet from the alleyway. Well, I'm
Oh,
not talking the alleyway, but the width of that. It's an extra, it looks,
the alleyway remains in the translucent solution. It is gone in the brick and glass solution.
how wide is the alleyway?
Looks like about 4.5 feet. Maybe 5. Well, yeah, maybe
If that's
5.
4.5, that means, that makes that quarter look awfully narrow.
It
on
is,
this. I mean, it looks like about 3 feet.
I didn't, I've got a reduced scale.
That's tough if your kid's moving in the right direction.
And
Is there-
maybe the
is
staff can currently comment on how they move between the columns now, because we're preserving the columns, we're not changing that space relationship.
Okay, so that's basically the walk space they have right now?
Correct.
Okay. And the staff had no suggestions on improvements or problems that they had that they asked you to address in the enhanced design?
The first design was the larger design, the minimal design was the second.
Well,
so-
technically, the first design is what they have now.
Yes, technically, because it's all wide open.
Right. And they didn't have any problems with that?
Nothing I'm aware of, other than weather.
Okay.
Whether they're, probably the staff can say whether the children, when they're commuting between classes, walk outside of the columns to get over to the ramp, I don't know. We did not observe that.
So in the translucent wall, I see a doorway which has been built in the entrance. Is that an emergency exit? Right here.
That is a doorway just to, so that the alleyway is not truly dead end. It allows the staff to go down the alleyway and enter closer to the gymnasium than having to go up the steps to the landing and then down the ramp again.
No, wait, so this would give, you wouldn't want to close the alleyway because this would give everybody another option to get in.
It's another option. We tried to forecast as much program use as we can with the designs, and that gives them maximum
And
flexibility.
the brick and mortar one doesn't give you that second option, it just gives you the one.
It enters the space more toward the playfield side, but it enters the same space, which is now part of the interior space under the new roof.
Okay, we'll get some public comment.
You want to do that now?
Yeah. Okay, ready? Unless you have something else to add. All right. We'd like to get to some public comment. How many folks in the audience would like to comment? That's good. I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes or so. We'll try not to manage that too tightly. I'm going to ask you to make your comments, and I'm going to ask you to speak to the item here, which is about the walkway. All right? Who would like to go first? All right, if you just come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening, I'm Lynn Brocklesby. I live at 102 Edge Hill Road here in Fairfield. I'm here in the capacity as a parent of the Osborne Hill student, and I'm also here as the PTA president. I'm here to represent the parents who could not be here tonight. Unfortunately, given the time of day, it's incredibly difficult for parents to come. So we have given them, gave them the opportunity to sign or to link to a support, whether they support or not, the current recommendation of the brick and glass. And thus far, we have over 100 parents in the past day that have signed that. We also have asked them to obviously email you with their concerns and where they want to support.
I believe that I can speak for my colleagues, there are quite a few emails that came through in support.
Yes. So, we're here, and I'm here in the hopes that we can remedy this situation as soon as possible, given the safety and security of the children. Not just the weather, but the fact that they're passing in and out with being, with teachers, but a level of 25 students is a concern. So the safety and security is primary. But then as we look at the two different options, and as Kim and Bill mentioned, the longevity of the brick and mortar building is much greater than the panels, the translucent panels. And when we look at the durability factor, it abuts the playground. That's the place where children play. That's the place where they throw balls. They could easily run up and jump to see how fun it would be to hit the translucent panels. And all of that could create damage to the panels, which then will create maintenance and other investments to repair. So we don't know where those maintenance and repair costs will come out. The difference between the panels and then the brick and mortar is $200,000. Over 20 years, you don't know that that would be less than $200,000. Also, the aesthetics, as far as the aesthetics, well, that's a concern. The aesthetics is a problem because we've considered, when you look at it, it's a more formidable barrier to have the brick and mortar solution. If someone's out in the back of Osborne Hill and they have the translucent panels, that is not the same as a brick building. Also, if you look at the panels, as Bill had spoken to, you can't see out the panels. So whether a child, the playground, and I'm sure you're familiar, the playground in the back is a hill and then the blacktop. If there was, God forbid, a person out there, children wouldn't see. They wouldn't know to get out of the way. Whereas if you have glass, you see what's coming at you. So we do, as parents, have significant concerns about the panels for different reasons. And we hope that we will be able to come to a decision as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Please.
Hi, Jessica Gerber, 25 Shady Hill Road. I have been the Board of Ed liaison to this building committee for 5 years now. I'm a former Osborne Hill parent. My daughter was in 4th grade when this project began. She is now halfway through her freshman year of high school. So I would just ask you to please consider the long-range ramifications of accepting the less expensive option. While I understand that $200,000 isn't nothing, I do think the fact that the brick and mortar has twice the lifespan of the panels is something that you really can't ignore. And to spend some money now to save it in the long run, I think is something that is very important to consider, in addition to the safety, security concerns, and just putting the teachers, the students, the parents, the families of Osborne Hill, who've been through a tremendous amount with this project over the years, to be able to have this safe enclosed space for them, for the students and the teachers every day, I think would be invaluable. So I ask for you to please accept the brick and mortar, and please vote tonight as well, because we really don't want this held up anymore. It's been held up long enough. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the public would like to comment? If you would.
Hi, I'm Tricia Paulsa. I live at 295 Osborne Hill Road, and I have 2 children at Osborne Hill School. And the one thing I just wanted to make sure you understand is that not only are the 5th graders coming in and out of that structure, but it is also the entrance and exit for all the playground play. So every single grade comes in and out of there twice a day just to go out to play and to come back in from recess and lunch and whatnot. So you just have every single child, unless it's raining, going in and out of there every day. So we just want to make sure that it's a sound enough structure to withstand all those kids. And I know it's still building, but we were talking about like our little kids, like the boys, and they're pushing each other and they're banging, and we're just concerned that it's going to get damaged over time. So we just want to make sure that it is sound enough and safe enough for all these kids to be coming in and out of every day. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public would like to comment? All right, seeing none, back to the board. Any further questions from the board?
Well, go back to the architect there. I mean, again, this can handle the durability of an elementary school, the translucent wall. We didn't put a design in something which is going to fail, right?
That's correct. It
Right.
can handle.
It can handle the durability.
Yes. For its life expectancy, sure.
Yeah. Are there examples of where this has been used in this function, like a wall of glass, for lack of a better term?
Not the, oh, okay. It is usually used as translucent panels in large volume spaces where you're trying to control solar gain or glare. Usually where we have witnessed it is in those high gymnasium translucent panels. Wall panels, we even, it's used elsewhere. I think one of the members mentioned it's one of your
Is
other
it
high
used in
schools.
floor-to-ceiling applications?
Floor-to-ceiling applications, we have seen it, yes, and I may have brought it. No, I
That
didn't.
was one of our questions from last time.
One of
I
the
think.
pictures that we forwarded to you showed it with a low wall application. So yes, it has been used at it. There's no prohibition to using it in the low wall application. We wouldn't have suggested it if it didn't. We truly address the building committee's desire to deliver as inexpensive but permanent a solution to transport the children at the minimal cost.
Question came up about maintenance cost. If I might, I didn't mean to cut you off. Maintenance cost of this versus the bricks and mortar.
Certainly, the brick portion has no maintenance. The glass is both tempered and hardened. It's susceptible to breaking. The translucent panels being at grade level rather than high translucent wall panels in gymnasiums will take a little more abuse. They may crack, they may dimple, but will they be to the point that you feel compelled to replace the panels? Probably not. It becomes more aesthetics and unsightliness. To the point at which they crack and fiberglass shards start appearing, and kids, of course, will play with it and get pricked. That is more apt to happen with this than it is with the glass solutions.
Okay. You mentioned this has a 20-year life. How do you know when it's done? I mean, does it start letting light in? What does it do?
The ultraviolet light starts degrading this smooth finish. If you guys haven't touched it, you ought to. You ought to feel what it feels like. It will start degrading this outer coating, gel coat as they call it, and you will start to see and feel the fiberglass panels. They're laying horizontally, so they're not protruding, but you'll just start to feel the degradation of the panel. They start to powder more. After 20 years, you rub your hand and it turns white as ultraviolet breaks down fiberglass much differently than it does glass.
So and if we replace it at that point, we replace it with some comparable technology,
And hopefully improve technology, yes.
which would cost approximately, in those dollars, what it does today, right? With some inflation, some price factor,
A lot,
assuming
yes.
that's, so basically, we'd get, with the bricks and mortar solution, we're getting twice the life for twice the cost.
Roughly.
And with this, for the same life, it's about the same cost per year is where I'm trying to get to.
That's what I just got out of that.
It is the same,
Roughly
the same cost.
$275 for 10 years versus $475 for 20 years,
No
for
question.
20
about it.
and 40.
Except the substantial difference is that you're doubling the amount of enclosed area with the brick and glass.
Right, that's not what I'm trying to get to.
I
I'm
know,
trying to get
okay.
to the cost per year.
Very good.
So
Roughly.
it basically, it's roughly the same cost per year. We pay twice as much for twice the life versus half as much for half the life.
Correct.
Except that half the life, since we still need the structure, we're going to have to pay more for the second 20 years.
Very likely.
So when all's said and done, it may be the same cost.
I cannot calculate that as fast as you can. So I have not done a life cycle analysis on this material.
Well, you said it was 20 years, so
Correct, but I haven't
Theoretically.
crunched the numbers to that degree to be able to comment.
yeah.
I'm with you.
So, I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of the structure's there, all we would do is be replacing the panels, which, have a, panel cost.
Correct.
Screwing in a new panel and we're set to go,
Correct,
right? The structure's not gonna fail in 20 years.
No, it's
Just
not.
the panels.
correct.
And the panels aren't gonna cost $400,000 just to do that. No, we're just replacing the panels.
Can't predict the panel cost 25 years from now.
You
so-
can't, but again, it's just the panels. We're not replacing the entire structure.
Correct.
So the illusion that we would be re-spending $400,000 in 20 years.
Actually, that wasn't,
No, and I wasn't giving that to you as the illusion. I was just saying to clarify that we're not.
yeah, the issue is in 20 years, we'd be spending another $275,000. So it'd get to a total of $475, so it would actually cost the same per year over 40 years. The question becomes, to Mr. Timniak's point, what is the cost per panel? Of the 275, how much of that is panel cost? How much of that's material?
We didn't break that, ask the bidders to break it down. If I had to guess, I would say it's at least $175,000.
So that plus labor cost to take away and put back, you're talking at least 200 grand in today's dollars 20 years from now, which kind of gets us back to the structure is not the major cost driver for putting this up. We'd have to replace it.
No. A significant component of the solution.
It's
both
the cost of the
solutions.
material for the panels to put it in and the
Right.
labor cost to put those on.
Correct.
So we're still basically the same cost per year over 40 years.
You're calculating much faster than I am, so.
Yeah, well, it's a function of an engineering degree.
Okay.
Only took one architecture course. And I think it was architecture appreciation. We didn't do numbers.
Oh, yeah, appreciate it.
Any, we can move that, Jen, if you'd like. What's the reimbursement on this? Kim, have you had a chance to talk with Board of Ed folks in terms of what the reimbursement? Mr. Morabito, if you could come up to the mic and let us know the kind of reimbursement percentages or what's eligible for the two projects, two proposals.
The reimbursement rate on the Osborne Hill project is 26.09%.
As of today? Or is
As
that-
of when it was approved,
So that's
when
done.
we originally filed it.
Okay, so this will be part of the original project?
We've done everything to maintain it as part of the original
So
project.
that 26% these projects have the same degree of eligible costs?
This is all new work, so theoretically, we're not replacing any element on this
Okay.
corridor, so when we're talking about the cost of the corridor, it's 26%.
So we're expecting that 26% to be
Back.
applied equally in both proposals?
Correct, correct.
Okay. Very good.
I have a question for Sal.
Go ahead.
Do you happen to know what a translucent panel would cost?
No, I do not.
Any guess? Because you
Do I
have
have a guess, Bill?
we have
No.
them already in the school, that's why I was asking, not in the school district.
I have not had the opportunity to have to replace one.
Okay.
The only place that we are replacing it, and I don't have it broken out cost, is on the Ludlow High School project for the window. There is a section that is translucent panels, and those are slated to be changed out.
Are you replacing them with translucent panels?
No, those are being replaced with thermal windows. It's consistent with the rest of the building.
So,
It was a design choice by that architect. It wasn't Bill's firm. It was a different group on that project. I haven't had that.
yeah, I mean, this,
Any further questions from the board? Do you have more?
Yeah, so, I mean, we have an option which is cheaper here, and are we going to be consistent town-wide in efforts to save money, or are we going to cherry-pick which projects to present this forward with? You know, I'm disappointed to hear that we're replacing translucent panels at Ludlow with tempered glass if there's an option to save money there. I mean, how can we justify saving money for one school, and then we're actually pulling it out and replacing with glass in another school? It's added a wrinkle to my thought process, which I'm a little...
And if I might, just to add another wrinkle, the way I'm looking at this is cost per year. If you look at the costs over 40 years, and we tend not to modify buildings all that often, the cost per year over that time is the same. We're either going to pay for 20 years and then pay again for 20 years, or pay for 40 years, and the cost per year comes out roughly the same in doing that. And by buying it ahead of time, we're basically locking in the price, so we know the price for the second 20 years doesn't go up, which would be another way to look at that.
So, yeah, and I hear that as well. Part of me wants to start the trend of having the Board of Ed look to reduce costs when it comes to this stuff, and especially when the building committees come up. Like, we have to have these options. I mean, our building projects are monumentally over what we targeted. And, you know, example after example, we see, and we have Holland Hill coming down, which that number is $7 million over what we were anticipating spending. And, you know, I have decision on top of decision, which, you know, we're continually adding. You know, someone made a decision years ago to put the cheaper translucent on via glass. How many years ago do you think at Ludlow?
I wouldn't have a clue. I don't know the date of that.
All right, so I mean, that decision was made, and you know, now at this time, right now, in this economy, with the state of Fairfield, with the state of Connecticut, and what we're doing here, we're going out and we're just continuing to spend as if there's not these options on the table. I mean, we have to analyze this. I mean, we've got people across the town, whether it's Ed, saving money with LED lights and all this stuff going on, and here we're replacing a cheaper option with a more expensive option right now. And it's the architect who did it. Like,
Any further comments on Osborne Hill?
my opinion is I'd like to see the town start moving more towards this and saving money in the long run. I mean, right now is not at a time where we can afford to have these aesthetic decisions being made. It's a concern of mine.
Mr. Bateson?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution to reflect the base bid number 2 at this time.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, my original intent in this years ago was to provide a level of protection to the students. I'd like to give the community what you want when it comes to the brick and mortar. There's a lot of stuff on our plate, though. I mean, there was a long discussion last night at the Board of Finance, Holland Hill. Holland Hill is going to eat up a lot of our capital resources. So I'd like to give you what you want. The brick and mortar is appealing, but I got to tell you, if there's an opportunity for me to save money today, I'd like to take it. That's where I stand on that. And I really want to act on this tonight and move it forward.
Mr. Timiak, do you have any following comments?
If you have any comments, I'm
Certainly, I
gathering
do.
my thoughts.
Yeah, I have a difficult time trading off short-term costs versus long-term costs, and I think that the better value, as the building committee initially recommended, I think is the $475 with the brick and mortar option. As I'm looking at that and saying it's going to last 40 years, we're going to pay for it over 20. That means the last 20 we're not paying for it. We're going to bond it, so that gets us down to $475 divided by 10 is what, down to I don't know, can't do the math quite fast enough, Mr. Bateson. Sorry about that. You've got a calculator. What's 475 by 20?
2375.
Okay, so that's 2375 per year on that, and I think that for 20 years, I think the costs actually are the same over that time period, because over the 40-year time period, because we buy a 20-year life and then we have to buy it again, and that, so I don't see a substantial cost difference. I see, well, I don't know if it's a significant safety difference, because I've come to understand the safety on the panels isn't bad. However, I think it is safer. It's, I think, a better value, and I just don't think we want to set up maintenance costs where we have to come back in 10 years and 20 years to have to do a major redo on something like this. So I would not support the amendment for just that reason. But, Mr. Bateson?
Yeah, I hear your thing about if you look at it over the 40 or 50 years, more what and that's a valid point. What I'm looking at now, though, is this project, if we're looking at the 475 as opposed to 275, I've got immediate capital needs on bond requisitions that are going to be, before us shortly for Holland Hill, and that's what I'm looking at when it comes to the waterfall. Here's another piece of capital going to this project. So that, I'm looking at that, too. I see your long-term, but also, too, I'm looking at the capital resources that we're using up front.
Yeah. And, no, and again, your point, we have to look at all of this, and for any of you that listened in on the Board of Finance meeting last night, that was a healthy discussion about what's taking place and serious concerns. about whether we can afford to have a 50% increase in what our planning number was, from 13 to 21 million. Now, the building committee's already committed to getting that back down to something in the 18 million range, but that's still significant money when we look at this over time. I think in this case, what's the 275 divided by 20? And thank you for bringing the calculator.
1375.
Okay, so that's 13,000 a year versus 23,000 a year in what's taken place, and I don't think 10 grand in and of itself is the difference. I'm a little concerned in terms of the application. I'm basically a conservative guy in terms of I like to see things that are done elsewhere, especially with town money and school money, that we don't want to be on the leading edge, and I would have been much more comfortable with more applications with these panels being used on floor-to-ceiling applications in other schools. And I know he said there are some, the architect mentioned there were some, but that didn't seem to be as widespread as I would have liked. So, Mr. Timniak.
Those are great points by both of you, and, I came in this meeting, I'm leaning towards the translucent wall. I believe that the town has to start making decisions along the lines of the translucent area and an opportunity to save money. This is a corridor for our kids to go back and forth. The goal was to create an atmosphere to protect them from safety and from elements. And what the architect presented today, although I'm not entirely sold on the process and the options which are in front of us. I am sold on the idea that the town of Fairfield needs to save money where we can right now. I was at the Capitol today and I heard the governor's message. It was a warning shot to the town of Fairfield for our future municipal aid we get. I think this may be the first tough decision we make in what's going to be a year of very tough decisions coming forward. Things I would have liked to see, I would have liked to see the brick and mortar at a smaller, scaled back a bit. I'm surprised the committee didn't look to do that. But right now, I'm going to vote in favor of
Okay. The item before us is the amendment, right?
Yes.
Did you have further comments on the amendment?
No.
Do you have any further comments on the amendment?
No, I don't.
Do you have any comments from the public on the amendment? All right. And the amendment only, please.
Just Jessica Grover, 25 Shady Hill Road. Just one thing to consider before you vote on this amendment is to just think about the fact that this building committee, which has been in place for about 5 years now, deliberated very long and hard on this decision and came to you after a unanimous vote to put the choice that you are now thinking of amending before you. So I would just ask you to seriously think of that. People who have been working on this, who have bid and rebid again, who have discussed it at great length, who have been working on this project for years, this is the choice that they unanimously came up with. It was not something that they lightly considered. It wasn't something that they just offhand voted on. It was part of many serious, lengthy discussions. And I would just hope that the Board of Selectmen would have taken the time to talk to the different building committee members to get a sense of where they were coming and why they made this decision in advance of tonight. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Mr. Dwyer?
Philip Dwyer, Chairman of the Board of Education. Pay for it now or pay for it later. Yes, you can make decisions today to save $200,000, but I believe, having done a lot of this in choosing finishing materials and construction materials that are cheap today, but in the long term, the life cycle cost, that will increase the cost to the Board of Education in the long term. I think you are making a mistake if you go, quote, the cheap route. So I would encourage you to rethink whether this really is in the long-term best financial interest of the town, because I don't think it is. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Yes?
Rabab Hassan Sayed. I'm on 579 Judge Street. I'm an Osborne Hill parent with a fourth grader going into fifth grade, so there will be a lot of use by my child of this particular passageway. In building our own homes, we obviously consider the long-term factor as well. I mean, again, I'm speaking to what the gentleman before me just said, was that we cannot possibly conceive some 20 years from now how much money Fairfield will be getting in at all. So perhaps to go with the cheaper option now, only to 20 years later be faced with a much harsher, difficult climate, is I think something that you also seriously need to consider. It's just when we put stuff in our own homes, we don't want to keep putting in money constantly. We look for the expenditure at this juncture in order to avoid, 20 years down the line, having to replace cheap items over and over and over again. So again, I would just absolutely make that plea that you just don't even know where you would be or what the climate would be 20 years from now to, again, be faced with the same decision and be in a harsher position than you are today. So I implore you to just also really take that into consideration. It doesn't look like there's going to be money coming in, especially to our town, anytime soon. So this might be, it's a here and now, right now, as opposed to there. But thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? On the amendment and amendment only, please.
Lynn Brocklesby, 102 Edge Hill Road. Rather than reiterate what everyone said, the only thing that I would like to say is that when we looked at the panels and I read on them, they are typically not used at the elementary school at the ground level. And there's a reason for that. So when we're looking at using this at Osborne Hill, this is an experiment. This is putting our school and our money into like a, for lack of better words, a guinea pig situation. And I don't think that as a taxpayer, that's good use of our money at this time. While it will save $200,000 now, we really have no idea where it's going to take us. Thanks.
Any further comments from the public? All right, thank you. We're back to the board.
Yeah, I hear the comments and concerns of the parents. Quite frankly, when you speak to me like this, it does give me pause to concern, and I begin to agonize over this decision. I'm fearful of the discussions we're going to be having in 6 months when it comes to Holland Hill. I mean, here I'm just looking to, save some money. I don't necessarily view it as a cheaper alternative. I see it as a viable alternative. But, what we're going to be faced with in a couple of months is, possibly cutting proposed classrooms at Holland Hill. Special needs space. I mean, all those discussions that came out of the Board of Finance last night. So that concerns me too, that, if I'm agonizing over this.
The discussion on Holland Hill was about meeting the ed spec, and the question was some of the design
Right,
features
but if
put
that
in,
becomes unaffordable.
were they more than the ed spec?
Right, but if that stuff becomes unaffordable, then that comes into play, and that's going to be on our table too. So
But the
I'm not
challenge-
happy. I'd love to give you guys what you want. I really would. And but I really have to take the long-term view in the other projects that we have before us. And that's what's weighing on my mind right now. And that's what's pushing me into, or, helping me decide on this.
Just to clarify, the discussion with Holland Hill was about, we've always charged our building committees with meeting the ed spec. In this one, they acknowledged that they went beyond the ed spec, and we're trying to get information back on how much additional costs there was with respect to that. So that was a healthy conversation last night. Any further discussion on this?
I'm good.
Yeah, I think Ed highlighted, it's a vote I'm uncomfortable taking. I want to give everybody what they have, what they want. I do understand the building committee spent numerous times focused on option A and option A alone. I wish that we came back with a skinnier version of option A. I believe that we need to take every opportunity to reduce costs, whether it's $10,000, $20,000 a year, whether it's $200,000 in this year's bond package. I know that we have big bond ticket items coming up. The long-term cost of the town in this budget, frankly, with the potential tax increase we're going to see, I think this is a hard decision, but I think it's a decision we have to make, and I think we have to keep making these decisions.
Okay, thank you. I think that, as with all things, there's always room for different perspective. I just see this as an opportunity to make the right long-term decision and save the town money in the long run. And frankly, that's always hard, because when you say you're going to save the town the money in the long run, it means it's going to cost it more in the short run. And there's no way around that. But I think as the building committee recommended, I think the bricks and mortar solution is a better long-term value, and I think it's important that we look at value and maintenance costs down the road, and we don't increase our long-term liabilities. As much as we look at that in terms of pension and medical costs, it's also that we look at that in terms of construction. So with that, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor of the amendment? Aye. All right. And I oppose? All right, that passes. The item as amended is before us. Any further discussion?
You need the exact number, or will they figure it out?
Why don't you,
The number I calculated was $261,000 for the resolution.
okay, I'm sorry, what was I thought your amendment broke that out to, was it 200,000, 275? Where'd you get this?
261, I just went through that calculation.
Okay, let's check with, can we confirm that
What do you want to add?
with the building committee? What is for the less expensive option, what is the number? Sorry, Ed, I was thinking 275, otherwise I would have questioned that at the time.
275 is the amount that we feel would be appropriate, including a contingency for the translucent panel option.
Okay, that's what I thought you'd said originally, so when you said lower price, I thought that's what we're referring to. But just to confirm, the building committee says the lower price option is 275?
Yes.
Mr. Basin, you said lower price, are you acceptable with 275? Is
That
that
is the
number?
lower price.
All right.
Acceptable.
Don't you second, is that okay?
Yes.
Can I just ask I assume the architect came up with these numbers? Can I just ask for your degree of confidence in the 275 number? Are both the 475 and 275 number developed to the same level of detail, so we know they're the same confidence in cost?
Just checking my math right now.
Please take your time.
232. Yes, confidence is high on the 275.
All right.
What's the amount in the contingency on that?
It will be
48,000, 49,000?
correct, which is about 10%.
10% of the 483 bid.
It was a 478 bid, but that's close enough.
483. Parenthetically at the bottom of the sheet. They submitted the wrong bid.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Still 10%, yes, roughly 10.
So 48,000's in contingency.
Okay, the item is amended as before us. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor? Signal by saying aye. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to vote no, because I think the other option was better. But that's it. We're moving forward. All right, now we're back.
I'm going to get a drink.
Go right ahead, take your time. Do you want?
Thanks, guys.
Pause?
Good luck.
No.
Okay. And we're taking a brief pause, and we'll be back momentarily. Resolution is recommended by the Director of Public Works. Resolved that a solar power purchase agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephia Holdings, LLC, for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of the Conservation Garage at 50 Richard White Way for the sole benefit of the Conservation Garage, the term of the agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. And further resolved that a system site lease agreement between the Town of Fairfield and Cephia Holdings LLC, for the purpose of erecting a photovoltaic electric generation system on the roof of the Conservation Garage at 50 Richard White Way for the sole benefit of the Conservation Garage, and the term of this agreement being 20 years, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second. But may I
All right.
also add something?
Go.
I'd like to suggest that we combine item number 10 with this as well, and waive reading, as it is a similar nature.
Mr. Bowman, is that okay with you?
Yeah, same thing.
All right.
And just note for the public that it's a different location.
Yep, and the item 10 then would be at the
Roof of the Public Works Garage.
Public Works Garage, term of the agreement between 20 years, all the same holding. May I have a motion to
Combine.
combine?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so items 9 and 10 are currently before the board. Mr. Bowman, will you take us through these?
Yeah, 14
And thank you,
points.
Mr. Bateson, for catching that.
14 points I haven't combined anyway. It's basically, it's probably the 15th time I've been back for the board for one of these agreements. We probably have like 25 solar projects either underway, built, or going forward. A few more will be coming. The difference with this one is that the vendor has decided to use the green bank financing and get 2% financing. That's CFIA, which requires the lease. If it didn't require the lease, it wouldn't even have to go to the RTM. It would just be a pure agreement. So when he does that, it goes to the RTM. And that's the main difference here.
All right, any questions from the board?
The garage you're putting it on, is that a 20-year lifespan?
Yes.
in
I
play?
mean, before we, if they find something different, we'll be back to you. But before we put these up, we always get a 20-year life.
Okay.
Mr. Bateson?
Yeah. When you say the only, do all these agreements come before the Board of Selectmen, but not
Yes.
the RTM?
Correct. So some of them are just power purchase agreements. There's no
And
lease.
the PPAs don't go to the RTM?
Not unless there's a lease involved.
Okay, so, okay, good deal. Quick thing, this summer when I was down at the dump, the old landfill, there's a new array up there.
All right.
Did we ever approve that?
Board of Selectmen did. Again, there's no lease. It's just
There's
a
no
power-
lease, so it
Right.
only went to the Board of Selectmen, didn't have to go to the RTM?
Correct.
Okay. Ed,
And that's a 1.5 megawatt one. That's the biggest one in town.
how, you're preparing budgets, or maybe the budgets are already done for electricity. How is this, how are these, you just said we have 25 of these projects in process or going on. When I look at electricity, should I be seeing electricity going down in the town now? Should we be trending down? Is that the purpose of this?
Yes.
Besides environmentally sending a message to the community, when am I going to start to see electricity go down?
Well, here, this year, three things have happened. One is, some of these are, the big ones are coming online, so there is a lesser cost of electricity for that component. And we bid out electricity this year, and that went down a cent a kilowatt hour from last year, so that's a lowering. However, as of January 1st of this year, UI's got a 14% rate increase, but roughly across
So
the board.
you're saying the savings on these is offsetting the 14% increase?
Not 100%, but pretty close. I mean,
So
it's
in other
just-
words, in a perfect world, if it was even, we would see decreases?
Yes.
But you're saying since we're getting killed by UI, we're not.
There's a slight decrease, but not as much as it should be. And each one of these also have a different cost per kilowatt hour. So if we're paying 8 cents, there's a decrease. But we show that in the budget. You see that in the budget. The cost of the
We
PPA.
will see in the
yes.
2018 proposal?
Yes, yep.
I can make two comments. One is that one indicator is 25% of our electric cost is being supplied by solar panels. So our
Today?
Today. So our cost would be much higher without that. Second, as Ed's pointed out to me, because your point's well taken, when you look at, it's kind of like comparing retail sales. You want to compare same store to same store. Because we keep using more electricity in a lot of our buildings, a lot of components, we really are reducing the increase as opposed to an actual decrease, because it's not a steady state.
Are these ones down at the dump, the two things, are these going to the WPCA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I imagine down there, that's what uses all our electricity.
Well, they use more than half of the town's electricity. Take the board of that out,
Okay,
they use about 60% of the town's 50 buildings' electricity.
right.
I'm good. I love these projects. Keep them coming.
All right? Any further discussion?
Yeah, one more. Is there any way you can put together something that's
I'm going to,
not for like budget or whatever, but I'd like to see how we're doing.
Right.
Can you evaluate these projects for me and just say, this is what you're saving? If we hadn't done these projects, this is what you'd be paying for electricity now, just to make me feel good about, if I hear a comment about, oh, that thing looks
Let me
ugly.
tell you what I'm,
And say, hey, yeah, you might not like the way it looks, but.
Mr. Bowman has done that every year or so for the Board of Selectmen, so we certainly can update that, but he's got some other ideas
yeah.
too, I
We're
think.
going to evaluate that, like the progress report every year,
Right.
end of January.
That's all
But
I'm looking for. All right,
in
I've never seen
addition,
that.
I'm having the vendors put together a color picture of each of the installations, the size, the amount of electricity made, and the savings. So we'll be able to, you can't see them. The one on the landfill, you're out there, you don't even know it's there. It's on a rooftop. You get so a picture of each installation, the size, and the amount of electricity made and the savings.
And with some of the things Ed is doing, it goes far beyond just the electricity cost for savings. There's a number of other very valuable components that are part of that, so his progress report updates us on that.
Okay.
All right.
As I point out, we have that comprehensive study that you approved last month. That'll be ready in about 60 days, which will look at 19 buildings from the rooftop to the subsurface tanks and look at a way of improving them and paying for those improvements for energy conservation as well as the green power savings. So,
Is this, anything else, Ed?
not on that, no.
Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? Ready. All right, now we're voting on the combined items 9 and 10. All in favor? Aye. Aye? All right. Mr. Bowman, thank you.
Okay.
And I think you've got number 11, too, if I
Yes, sir.
read this correctly. Item number 11, from the Director of Public Works, which requires Board of Finance and RTM approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution, whereas a resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $1 million for the cost of the town's comprehensive LED lighting program and other comprehensive energy conservation measures, and authorizing the funding of such appropriation," was approved by the Board of Selectmen on November 29, 2016. And whereas the town is only going to receive a grant of $269,697 rather than $500,000, and the total cost of the project is now $769,697 rather than $1 million. Now therefore be it resolved that the resolution approved by the Board of Selectmen November 29, 2016 regarding the $1 million LED lighting program is hereby rescinded, and a resolution entitled "A Resolution Appropriating $769,697 for the cost of the town's comprehensive LED program and other comprehensive energy conservation methods, and authorizing the funding of such appropriation, be and hereby is approved." May I have a motion to accept?
Move.
A second?
Second.
All right, thank you. The item is now before us. Mr. Bowman, tell us what's going on.
Okay, I mean, the original $1 million proposal came about as just an off-the-wall estimate. When UI came to us and said, if you can put together a proposal early in December, by the end of December, we will offer you a $500,000 loan and up to a 50% grant. So we had already begun work on the comprehensive plan. The lighting was the easiest one to get a handle on. We estimated that cost. By the time we got through, the cost was down to $769,000, not $1 million. And the way UI calculates the grant, it's a combination. There's 4,491 lighting fixtures being done. They just looked at, each one of those is looked at, and they either grant you 50% of the construction cost or 40 cents times the KWH annual estimated savings, whichever is less. And that's how we got down to this lower level. And if I'd like to go through the last thing I put here, which show you in detail what we did to get there.
Okay, that was the item that you handed out today?
Yes. And basically we're saying, just here's how, this is the amount of effort that the town and consultants put into it in this 30-day period, and UI too. We use these different industry standards called lighting fax label, which is an Energy Star, product as well as other one. And that, you look at all the LEDs for 5 performance areas. The lighting output of lumens, which is, the higher the number, the more light emitted. The watts, the lower number, the less energy used. The efficacy, lumens per watt. Again, the higher the number, the more efficient the product. Efficacy, color, temperature, choosing the right temperature color for the right usage, and that can be very important. And color rendering index, the effect of that light's color on the color appearance of the objects it shines on. Then it also provides lumen maintenance numbers. So the measure of the light LED is projected to emit at 25,000 hours of operation at a given temperature compared to the initial outlet. In other words, how much it degrades. And finally, it notes whether a product has a manufacturer's warranty and length, and all products chosen have warranties that vary from 22,000 hours to 50,000 hours. Now, looking at a different way, the police and the fire department operate 24 hours a day, 8,760 hours a year, so it's not it's just 5 years for them. Independence and Town Hall operate 70 hours, so it's over 10 years for us. So it's an hours of operation rather than years. It's not fair to say years, really. Now, the installers extended those warranties to a full 5 years and 50,000 hours. So we'll get not the lesser of, but the larger of. It's important to note that 5-year 50,000 warranty is primarily for the ballast or drivers. The lights themselves can last well over 100,000 hours. So then there's another part. The product is also valued using the Standard Design Consortium and DLC. Now, that Design Light Consortium takes the minimum standards for 25,000 hours and says how much is degrade up to 50,000 hours. So you're getting you want to pick a light that's going to have as much as possible light after 25, 35, 45, 50,000 hours, which makes sense. Otherwise, you're not going to get the light that you're looking for. And then power factor must be 0.9 or better. And the power factor is a measure of the energy being delivered to the lights and the energy actually used. So you're always going to deliver more power than you actually use. So 9.9 is a 90%, which is considered a very good power factor. Then the final measure of comparison of installed cost and lifetime cost. Products are all analyzed by these measures and recommended in Public Works. Once the product and the purchase costs were chosen, competitive proposals for installation were evaluated and a contractor selected. That process avoids a vendor markup. In other words, we picked the best possible product and it got a cost of that product and then picked the vendor to install it, so there's no markup between the two. We also were very careful to try and choose the light for a designated purpose. We chose this 4,000 Kelvin line for all the fixtures in an attempt to create color that's most conducive for office working hours. We have experimented in Independence Hall, and Public Works and Engineering has that kind of lighting. And it's, compared to this lighting, which is more yellow, it's a more white light. And it's an amazing the difference. You can see your computer without glasses, basically. There's much better lighting. So we chose that for everywhere in the town. However, they will put test lighting in each building to make sure that really works the way it's supposed to for each office. And the LED lighting also allows us to control the direction of light. So different lighting was chosen for offices, high bay garage, walkways, and stairwells. Outdoor lighting is made on that basis also. Building lights and parking lot lights have different functions, require different directional emphasis. It's important to note the outside LED lighting prevents light from being sent upward and outward, and then reducing neighbors' complaints and enhancing dark skies initiatives. Lighting controls are also evaluated. Most of the 19 buildings already have light, heat, and noise detectors that shut off lights at an appropriate time. The LED will work with these controls, so that automated shutdown will continue to occur. Now, looking at the 19 buildings, 4 are more costly than others for following reasons. The police department, that's $111,000. Dimming capability was added to the police department. The building does not have the sensors to shut off lighting for security reasons. The police department does want someone down the outside to know certain offices are vacant. The dimming capabilities answer that problem, so it'll always be lit, but at a lower level. And dimming controls are also added. At the library, daylighting was added. The library was the only building in the town where daylighting was an option, which would cause the lights to go higher and lower depending on the light. The only building that had enough facing windows to make that work. And daylight is expensive, and if controls had to be added, it wouldn't be conducive to payback was like 30 years. But the main library has installed and cellular controls, which we put in there years ago. Therefore, the daylighting works there. And in some cases, also the fixtures will be replaced at the library. Independence Hall is $124,000, and that's a result of what's happened to this building over the last 30 years. Considerable office modifications were made. Many of the ceiling fixtures in the office are not located properly in relation to office space and desks. It also resulted in a surplus of lighting in a lot of areas. And we did a photodrametric study of this building, and all the fixtures will be replaced, and some will be relocated so they're in the proper spot over people's desks. And the amount of lighting in this building in the office space will be lowered dramatically as a result of that. In the senior center, again, $98,000, and mainly the cost of the ceiling fixtures need to be replaced, but not just bulbs. So Again, remember, the fixtures themselves don't have the payback that the bulbs do, so that's why it's not a full 50%. For the balance of the buildings, there were very few fixtures that were needed. Now, parking lot lighting and building security lighting were also included. Independence Hall, Old Town Hall, Recreation Center, Senior Center, May Library, and the new Penfield Beach. And building security lights were added to all their buildings except for those which upgrades have already been made. Now, once that was done, United Illuminating's engineering and economic evaluation of the results had to be made. And again, they looked at 4,409 separate light bulbs. Sounds incredible to make those kind of decisions. They first for operating standards, second for costs, third for the projected KW savings, and fourth, each of them had to be evaluated as the economic opportunity comprehensive cost line, a lesser than 50% of construction costs, or 40% times the 40 cents times the KWH saved. And Earth Core, as the general contractor, will supplement the manufacturer and installer's warranties with a performance guarantee. It will guarantee the kilowatt-hour savings in the proposal will be achieved as long as the buildings continue to be operated for similar hours with similar equipment, a similar number of employees. For that, we'll assign a 5-year operation and maintenance agreement with them to monitor the lighting, enforce the warranties, and fix any problems that occur outside of the scope of the warranty so we can get the savings as projected. And then in between that, once installation is completed, I think we mentioned in earlier meetings that third-party independent engineer will perform measurement verification to assure that the products installed were the products specified, that they were installed properly, and the KWH savings guaranteed are achieved. So again, we went from a project we were just estimating to a project that in a month we did some very detailed research and got the project moving.
Thank you. Mr. Bateson?
So that detailed explanation was basically to explain why UI share went down?
Yes.
Okay. Quick thing, the only thing I noticed before this, I'm ready to act on this tonight. I just want, before it goes to the Board of Finance, we're doing something at the senior center. Can somebody just take a look at the lease? Don't we have somebody down there?
Child's Garden.
Child's Garden, make sure that they're not responsible for any kind of maintenance. Maybe they could chip in, you know, I don't know what their lease is, I don't have it off the top of my head, but if there's something in that lease, that capital improvements.
We'll ask if you create an action item, Sheila, so we have the town attorney take a look at that. Obviously, Stan here heard you, but we'll make sure it's written down.
But as is, I mean, that was only $98,000, but I think maybe if something comes up with that, just have the board, flip it to the Board of Finance.
Hey, did you draft these resolutions?
No.
Who did?
I think between the town attorney and Kathleen in your office drafted them.
Yeah, which means they generally go through the Board of Finance when they're doing that.
Thank you.
That was one thing I didn't do.
I'm sorry, I forgot that. Where's the money coming from, the 500?
That 500,000 is a loan. And again, originally the
So
loan.
when we pay back the loan, where's it coming out of? Debt service?
We're borrowing the money.
Right.
Yeah.
When the payback, what line
What
item?
we're borrowing is, basically is at July 1st. The money gets borrowed after the work is finished. The contractor's taking the liability for this, you know, carrying the loan through until it's up and running and the UI says, yes, it works. Then we start paying that loan back over 4 years on a monthly basis. To this private MCOR, which is a private corporation, UI works with the loan money at a discounted rate. The UI then picks up the interest rate, so we have an interest-free loan for 4 years.
Am I going to see that in some department?
Yes. Where's the payback? Ed? When we're paying back the money,
Yes,
paying
it's
back the loan,
Pay back the loan out of.
which line item in the budget is that in?
That I can't tell you.
Is it in your department?
It'll be in our department. It's not a separate line. We'd have to take that as a sub-line out of energy, out of the electric bill.
Right, and the reason is because we're expecting to see lower energy costs because of these lights.
Right, we're-
Because there's no ramp up, because it's all installed first.
Right.
So the first time we make a monthly payment, we have the max discount because of the new light usage.
Yeah, we may have a
It's going to
1
be buried
month.
in Public Works Electric somewhere.
Yeah, and we can
That's
set.
what I
we-
was asking for.
I mean, that's what we're having, part of what I want our guy who's, you know, guaranteeing it to do is going to give us like quarterly reports to show exactly what we're saving.
I just didn't want to see it pop in special materials or something like that.
And the Board of Finance has asked that too. You know, sometimes it's hard to track energy conservation when it's HVAC. You have, you know, higher heating days, more colder, but this is pure lighting. It's hours of light. It's easier to track and easier to show where the savings are, so we'll
As
be
the
able to
sun
do that
changes,
next year.
yes. All right, any further questions from the board? Any comments from the public? Back to the board, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. All right, that's item 11.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ed.
Next up, from the town attorney, a private executive session concerning pending litigation. I have a motion to go into private executive session.
I feel like should we outline why we're going into executive session, sort of give the public let them know what we're at least discussing?
I think that's the reason we're in private executive session and not do that. Typically, with private executive session, you would identify the topic that you need an authorization. There's only certain areas where you're allowed to go into private executive session. School security was one, as we saw earlier. Pending litigation is the other.
Okay.
Second?
Was that
Yeah.
a motion, not a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, private executive session, I'm going to ask everybody to leave except for Mr. Lesser, Mr. Michelangelo, and Mr. Carey. May I have a motion to come back into public session?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're back in public session. I just want to comment that in private executive session, there were no motions made nor votes taken. Next item up is the tax collector, to consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount recommended. I have a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any amendments?
I have an amendment.
All right.
I'd like to change the amount to $4,405.15, followed by a period.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the item as amended stands before us. Any further discussion? All in favor of the item?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on. Last item, to hear, consider, and act upon any other business that shall properly become before this meeting.
Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, Happy New Year. All right, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And Sheila, thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.